So let's start right here and tell me why you decided to, trust a random stranger to help you save your marriage.
Uh, Nothing I ever did was working. Like I'd gone through, lots of self-help books and stuff like that, or just things that benefit me. The Compound Effect, Seven Habits of Highly Effective Strangers,
Great books.
um, uh, all your love languages. But there's nothing that like keeps you consistent to put you into practice. And like you try it for a while, but there's just there's no you put the book down, and then the book is down. Um, so yeah, which led me to I want to say, let's see, uh probably the second week of July this year. Like I was just doom scrolling, just not doing the things I needed to, just dinking around, and I'd missed a couple opportunities to do things with my family and stuff this summer, and I was just trying to like calculate better, quantify why all of that was happening. And so right off the bat I was like, well, this isn't helping me. So I delete Instagram, delete Facebook, anything that could just keep me distracted on my phone. And like I was kind of feeling bad about a couple opportunities that I'd missed. And so I just called my wife right there. It's like, hey, look, I'm not the man that I should be being right now. Like these are opportunities I've missed, with us. I'm sorry. And 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 I wasn't the only one thinking that. Um, she's like, yeah, we should talk about this. You know,
Yeah.
and so she'd had this letter that she had written to me. Just things I felt like I hadn't been holding on, or holding up on my end. I wasn't doing great about planning things for my wife or my boys or family trips or anything like that. I'd kind of let all that be on her. Just figuring out how to like take the time and listen to her. I just didn't have skills for any of that. Um, and this will get into other things later, I suppose. But it was once a lot of these cards were on the table, it was stage one with like stonewalling on her end, and like she had some harsh realizations that became really harsh, and just that way all the way around. So which is where I started. I think I just Googled like, how do I save my marriage? How do I open communication? How do I do this? And my wife was heavy in a resentment stage at this point. Like we probably had a kiss that morning before I had gone to work, and then it was just this staggering regression where everything came pouring out, and 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 that's how it kicked off. So I started watching videos, came by three or four by you, started listening more and more. Got the invite for a free call, or a consult. Met with I can't remember who my first call was. hmm Whoever was selling me the program, they did a great job. Um, and that's where it began. I had talked to a couple of my foremen at work. I was like, hey, I just went in my foreman's office and shut the door. I was like, hey, I might be getting divorced here. I have a couple calls that I need to make. Like, are you all right with me doing this? And he's like, yeah, don't wind up like me. He'd been divorced 6 years ago. And you know, he just, yeah, like when he kind of told me his story, like it's a lot like mine, but he just didn't do anything and didn't know how, or didn't know where to start, or
Yeah.
and yeah, Valdez is a lot of Alaska. If you work in oil fields, you're gone 2 weeks on or 2 weeks off, or and for him those hitches started turning into 2, 3, 4 months because he just wasn't feeling appreciated, and it was definitely that it just stacked up on him until um I would say he pushed his wife away until she was unfaithful to him. And yeah. um
So yeah, your situation was pretty unique in which that you were the one that kind of, was the catalyst to like, I should do something about this, right? Because
oh
and
yeah.
and so I think maybe, I don't know this for sure, but I would argue if I was to speak with her, you doing that's probably a lot better than her coming to you, right? And saying like,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh,
what would you call that ability to just have that honest? I'm not going to give you the words, but like, what would you call that?
um, I don't know. A mixture of discontent and self-reflection.
Self-reflection.
It,
I'll take the
you
positive
know,
spin. James,
yeah, it,
self-reflection. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I mean, yeah, I feel like that, but it wasn't working for me too.
Okay.
Uh-huh. And that took some time to get to that the things in my marriage weren't working for me as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, self-reflection, on my, I knew I wasn't doing what I wanted to do.
Right.
I hadn't had the fun this summer, and you got to get your summer fun in here because we only have a couple months of it sometimes. The snow doesn't melt until July in my town sometimes.
So that all happened, and then before we go into what you did to get to where you're at, let's talk about where you're at now. What are some of the biggest wins that you had since joining?
Biggest wins. My wife and I make plans for the future now. Um, my work, the things I've been doing, have led to a big reflection on her part, uh, for herself. She's seeking therapy and help for things that she needs. It's kind of become contagious for how we're getting better, you know. Um, uh, and it's hard because I've been with my wife for 18 years probably, um, which is just nuts to say every time I say it. Anyway, figuring out just making our individual time and scheduling around the boys, our three sons work schedule, things like that. But no, like it we just recently, big win. We've called one of our parents and reaching out for help. We're going to try and get one of them up to come up during Christmas so we can just take a vacation together just for a few days, get that tail end of our a winter break in, and something we've talked about forever, and just uh,
Homework.
yeah. But yeah, siblings needing help with children are just scheduled, but I feel like we're at a point where we're just asking for some parents' help to just
Yeah,
keep our kids taken care of. Three boys is a lot. You need family to watch them. No one
for
can
sure.
just drop it and do that.
Oh, yeah,
Hmm.
I had so many babysitters
Yeah.
growing up for that.
Hmm.
So you were at stage. What stage would you say you're at now?
Probably 4 or 5. I mean, we make plans for the future where, it's not awkward when I come in and hug or kiss my wife, or, she's there waiting to receive it, or she comes and meets me at the door.
So
Like
there's
it's really nice.
physical affection there.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say pretty much stage five. Okay, so now let's talk about yeah, some of the things that happened along the well, first of all, actually, how long ago did you join the program? How long ago?
Uh, we'll just call it the beginning of August. Hmm.
Oh, so pretty recent. I mean,
Oh yeah. Like it progressed.
oh wow. Okay, so like
And
8 weeks.
yeah, yeah, from probably when I found the program the middle of July to getting actually set up, and it took me a week to just get it together and connect with Thea
Sure.
on Messenger and everything like that, my mentor, who's been great. But yeah, no, I think and I do believe that uh you know a big part of that is me coming to that conclusion and not waiting for her to just be like, I'm leaving it. Hmm. And I don't know what helped me catch that, or whatever mechanism that was, but we could have been starting now, and I'm really glad we're not.
Yeah. Wow. So, okay, my favorite part, which is some of the insights and like some of the things you did along the way that you feel like led to this progression. What's one thing that's top of mind from the program?
Oh, from the program, uh realizing space was for me.
Hmm.
Yeah, you have a hard time coming to terms with this is for you and not your marriage, and that will take a little while to get around, or put your head into the space where it needs to be beneficial for you, and you aren't getting what you wanted either if you're not the man that you want to be. And you're not creating that, or but just looking at space as an opportunity. has probably been my one of my biggest wins. Yeah, I yeah, she had written me like a letter of things that she was expecting from our, wanted from our marriage or knew that she wasn't getting. And this was before I had even, had that call with her, explaining what was going on. So I was like, if you feel like sending that to me, that would be great. It's it it I did have a little benefit to understanding my wife's blueprint, right off the bat. So, each situation is unique, but I did have that to draw on. And, a large portion of my CLCs and things like that have been um just contributed right to that. Even when, I was getting one word answers for three, four, five, and we'd had regressions a little bit. Um uh yeah, realizing space was for me and taking advantage of that. And coming home, uh, just working around space being for me and coming home with intention. When I needed to have that space, I'd come home, I'd check in, I'd see the things that, touch base about the kids. How is this? How is this? Um, but I wouldn't linger around, like no more Mr. Nice Guy. I wasn't waiting for scraps.
So
I had something to
what did
do.
you what did you occupy your time with in like
Um,
create that space?
I always have a million projects, but really it was things that I hadn't been doing, like working out or, just taking a run or doing things for me. You can, yeah, I was really good at busying myself with yard work and stuff like that, maybe, but that might have just been a distraction to, from me internalizing, you know, when she was upset to thinking it was a reflection of myself
Right.
or my value or what I wasn't providing. Now we can, you know, now I take that time, I sit with it for now. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that
Hmm.
that's a integral component of success for guys that a lot of men struggle with, which is what you just alluded to, which is not taking it personal. So how did you cultivate that ability when she does have a criticism or she's upset to like be able to kind of like say, okay, go, maybe this is time to go toward her and not make it about me. How are you able to do that?
Um, there's a gentleman here, Chris Parker. He's with the group. He's been a huge benefit to me. And approaching it with curiosity. Uh-huh. Like, because there's a million things you're thinking, but you don't want to say the wrong thing, but just asking questions like, hey, do you think this is because of this? Or, if you, take a minute to see the situation for what it is. When I do such and such, does it make you feel this way? Just asking questions instead of freezing up or disassociating or just not doing anything at all. It it I think it's a realization that I couldn't be initially. I like you can't approach these things with my wife is mad at me or being afraid that she's mad at you. You're gonna have to get right with that and realize that sometimes she's just not going to be okay or not pleased or and it's not your fault. And she's allowed to have feelings. I think that's a big one. She's allowed to have feelings. And yeah, it's not a reflection of you and approaching it with curiosity if you don't always know what to say. Because you can't just start defending yourself or your actions. You need to, uh, I think it helps if you don't always know where to say, why is my wife thinking that way? You know, pick your way through that a little bit. Like, could this because of this, or you know, I mean, if you and your wife are still talking a little bit when you have these things going on, what's going on with her if you're talking. See if there's an association between what happened at this point or what happened at this point, or talks you've had, or just connecting the dots and approach them with curiosity is has been the big thing.
That's one thing that I'll say is you can have two men and a lot of guys they'll be like, okay, what do I say to her to, and I can give you all the right words, but if behind those words you are not accepting her emotions and you're just like really upset, like versus a guy who has maybe all the wrong words, but he genuinely is like connected and curious and wanting to be there for her. This guy will win 100 times out of 100, right? And so
Oh
that's what
yeah.
I say about that. Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah. And yeah, that like in that context, it's super difficult. Yeah, you're learning a new language, so a lot of that, if she shares something and you're thanking her, like my wife, she's like, this feels scripted, or this isn't authentic, or or if she'd be really, really upset about something, and she'd just kind of be teeing off on me about one thing or another, and just seeing my calm. She's like, I'm no, this is the other shoe's going to drop here, and I was like, I've given you every reason to feel that way, um, and more than once, I feel like, I reminded her, I was like, well, I do appreciate that you're still here to have these talks, even if you're feeling this way. Um, and I feel like there's points where she felt that she didn't have to, but I feel like I'd made those points for her. Like, she's got a sister that was in a bad relationship. Her parents took good care of this sister, saw her through nursing school. She's an NP now, doing great. I was like, but if your parents are well off, you could leave if you wanted to, and you would be okay. Like, your folks would take care of you. Like, so I feel like every day that this doesn't go well and you choose to stay, you're choosing to stay because you don't need to be here. And just getting to that point of understanding, like, my wife stayed with me for all the logical reasons, so I didn't really ever have to use logic with her. I already understood that. Oh,
Sorry, the
oh,
moving
it's quite
company.
all right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, no, I think what's happening there, that phenomena is like that a desire paradox I talk about, which is you by saying that, by saying like you could leave, you could be okay. It's allowing her to leave, but knowing that you have your own value, right? And a lot of guys, right, they're like this, they're trying to hold. It's like I talk about the bird cage versus the bird nest, where it's like they try to put their wife in a cage and like, no, 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 you can't leave because of these reasons. And like we have a bunch of eggs in the nest. And you're like, what is going to happen, right? And like all this stuff versus like having a bird nest where it's like, hey, like there's a stable base here for you. You can go fly around, right? And like, but I know you're going to come back to me. And like that creates safety in her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Security. And so that's what you're providing her by saying something like that.
Yeah. And it wouldn't have just been support for her parents. It's like, yeah, she'd given a whole lot of her life to being a mother, and a ton of her identity had went with that.
Mhm.
And I feel like in life, she doesn't even know where to start doing the things that make her happy. But I have always, I feel like I've been great about, like, hey, if you need to do something, like, I have a week on, week off schedule. If you need to do something, go do it. I've got the boys. We're fine. We're gonna be okay. Um, and yeah, and every time I meeting with intention too. Like, every time I say the boys and I are fine, or I can tell she needs space, uh, me and my sons go do something awesome, and I make good and prove it when I have that opportunity.
And that ability to do that and to guide her and to also, plan this trip with her. I mean, and then her wanting to get support for herself, those are all tied together into the core idea of masculine leadership, which I'm
Hmm.
seeing from you, right? And
Yeah.
the more I touch on this idea, the more I realize, and this may be delusional, but I'm just seeing it through this lens, which is you lead her in so many ways that it's like, well, I'm probably not even aware of, right? Because
Hmm.
I get to hear everything about every guy's situation, but like speaking for myself and everyone else I know, so much of what you do it just guides her, right? And she's just a direct reflection of you, and she shows you parts of yourself that you do need to work on as well. And that's where the tests come in, and that's kind of what I want to transition to is like, did you see the clear test that she showed you across this period to get to where you're at?
Oh yeah. No, and yeah. Well, I mean, essentially, like, if you think of everything as a test, the minute it comes out of your mouth, you say you're going to do something, that it started.
Mm,
Whether you see it that way or not. Like, planning my boy's birthday, because we have 3 birthday months in a row. And like, hey, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. If if there's time. Like there's not a lot of places to go out to dinner in our little town, but saying you're going to do that and doing it, it just backing your word up is not I'd like to do things with you. This is what we're doing.
Mm.
These are the dates we've planned it. Um, and then of course, every time she was really pissed, or had something to get off her chest, that's, the test has started. Like you're gonna have to calm down and listen. Anything you're thinking of, you're gonna have to, it's finding that transitional flip to where you would be not doing so well. You'd be internalizing or receding or avoidance techniques, right? You need to step up and listen to what she's saying, not internalize, and approach that with curiosity. And and those things, you get better at speaking that language. And even her calling you out, like, no, this is not something you've ever said. We're waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't know how long you can keep this up for. Uh-huh. And even one time when she said that, I was like, you know what? I don't know either, but I'm here every day doing it. If it doesn't work, it's not going to work, but it's working now. I'm here for this. Um, everything's everything's kind of a test. It depending on how high you want to hold yourself to it or choose to.
I have a kind of a weird question. It maybe seems like out of pocket a little bit, but it just comes up, so I'm just going to go with it. With all these tests and everything that's been going on with her and the history you have with her, and the amount of work and effort and just how much your soul you put into the marriage and the kids, and like, why her?
Other than history, every like my whole life, not my whole life, but ever since I've known my wife, I feel like everything. She's a phenomenal human being. I know how she feels right now isn't her, but I've spent a lot of my life watching her. Everything she does, she's usually doing for someone else,
Mhm.
and I hold that in a super high regard. Um, and I think a lot of us going into that was her realizing just how much she had done for other people and not taking care of herself. She's on every PTA board, swim board, preschool co-op when our kids were in preschool. Like she she'll she'll put herself up on that altar all the time, to just sacrifice herself, and I really admire that. Uh, and all the time, I feel like my wife was always wanting to do things with me as well. There's never enough time a day to get everything in.
Mhm.
But I did know that no matter how much she did, I always felt like she wanted to do that with me, or together.
Yeah.
Not side by side, but together and going through it. And I think realizing that togetherness is is why us. I have someone that wants to be with me through everything, and that's really special.
To some, it's priceless.
Hmm.
Last question I like to ask, James, is if you could jump in a time machine and go back maybe a year, or and just shake yourself and tell yourself something in that moment that he needed to hear to get to where you're at now, what would you tell him?
I'm not sure if I would, Josh. I don't think. I think my low points were the things I needed. My not eating for more than I could stomach, or not sleeping or anything like that. You can't just tell somebody this is what was going on. I probably wouldn't have listened anyway, or objected and say, well, I have this and this and this to do, or we need to plan this, or I need to do this. I don't think you can get to this spot by being told anything. Um,
The
and
unfortunate that is true. Like, guys have to, like, we only change from inspiration or desperation, right? And so you got to hit that
yeah.
low.
hmm And yeah, no, I don't think. Yeah, no, you can't. You can't. You can't. You don't get reforged if there's not any heat. And
you say that
Hmm.
again? I want to
I
hear
say
that.
you don't get reforged if there's not any heat.
Oh,
Hmm.
this is why I love getting on calls. Just like drop wisdom lines like that is like, so, I love that. I
Hmm.
love that.
Yeah.
Is there any last things you wanted to ask or say to me before we wrap up?
Um, no, I really appreciate the program. Everything's been going great. My mentors have been great. My BIA calls have been phenomenal. Everything I do, I try to share with, you know, a brother in a comment, or what's worked for me, or I think our largest things are just remembering that this is just as much for us as it is your marriage. You're going to carry this on. If you don't have it sorted out, you won't. And the time's now to do it. We invested the money. We have all this support. This isn't something I want to put down. I like, yeah, and this is things that these my skills and techniques, or anything I do, like I pass this on at work to guys, 10 years younger than me. Uh, you know, if you're doing this, it's probably because of this. If No, I've recommended No More Mr. Nice Guy to so many guys that I work with. Uh, just it Yeah, or just shared bits of this. I've done a lot of teaching in my time here.
And you'll hear me say this if you haven't already, which is that's the best way to learn, right? Is to keep on teaching, right? So
Hmm.
one thing I would say to you, which you're already doing, is just stay active in the community and support other guys that were where you were at, months prior.
Hmm.
They'll keep it on top of mind for you. But James, thank you so much for taking time to speak with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Enjoy your
All
Sunday.
right. Sounds good. I will. I will. All right. You take care, Josh.
See ya.
Bye now.